Wouldn't it be great if you could attract anything you want easily and effortlessly? Wouldn't it be great if you could always know how to make the best decisions for you all the time? And wouldn't it be great if you could create a life that you actually want to live, one that makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning and ready to get started? Well, the good news is that it can be fun and easy to do all this and more when you learn about who you are and how you're hardwired energetically. Today, we're going to look at your type's superpowers. And this is part of a larger series, What Your Human Design Chart Says About Your Purpose. In these times, I call it the new paradigm. My business is New Paradigm Transitions. I'll tell you a little bit more about me in just a minute, but in this time especially, it's so more important than ever for all of us to be living on purpose. And the best way to do that is to live in alignment with our design. And that's what we're going to do today. So today you will learn your type's superpowers, at least some of them. There's so many that you have individually. We're going to focus on the ones related to your type today. So I know you're going to learn something new. And if you don't already have a chart, please download one for free at freehumandesignchart.com. And so today we're going to start off with a brief discussion on what is human design, where did it come from, and then we're going to look at types, the 5 types in the context of career, because so many people have been reaching out and saying, hey, I'm in a career transition, I got laid off, my job went away, I want to work remotely, whatever it is. Many people are reconsidering the job or career, or the way they're living, working, and being in the world. So I'm going to focus this around a conversation around career, but really it relates to anyone, and this is related to your type. And then we'll focus specifically on the superpowers that each type has. We'll have time for Q&A at the end. So let's go ahead and jump in. Today, we're going to just be talking about type. When you get a chart, a traditional human design chart, there's so many things on it. We'll make some references today to some of these things, but for the most part, the focus of this class is about type. This is my chart. I'm a 2-5 manifesting generator, and we're going to talk about the superpowers of each of the types, not just me. But real quick, a bit about me so you understand who I am and why I'm sharing this today. I'm excited to share human design with everyone because it profoundly changed my life a few years back. I've been a professional change manager, and for about 20 years, I now today help women in midlife transition create a life they actually want to live. That is because 5 years ago, I went through an unexpected divorce and downsizing, and I faced a health crisis. Well, I'd had these debilitating migraines for 18 years, and I finally figured them out. And it all started when I learned human design, and I'm so glad I found it because I was really ready to check out. My life looked perfect on the outside, but as all these things hit me all at once, I was really pretty low, kind of the dark night of the soul type experience, and I just wanted to check out. I had to leave my husband in a hurry. He put a knife to my neck. I moved in with friends. They urged me to get a human design reading. I had never before spent that kind of money. I say that kind of money, more than like $50 on myself. And it felt like, and so to spend a couple $100 on a reading seemed really, really like hard for me to choke down at that point, even though I was making decent money and I could afford it, but they kept urging me, and I finally did. And it really, wow, changed my life because I paid for it. I was really adamant that I was going to get everything out of it. I listened to it several times, took notes, and it was in the third time of listening to the notes or listening and transcribing notes that boom, all these light bulbs went off, and it just profoundly changed my perspective because all of a sudden I realized that I'm not broken. I'm perfect the way I am, and so are you. And that is my message today. As a result of that, I started looking into how to apply my professional change management career to my own personal change. And what I found was that the missing component was energy. So as I learned about the energetic blueprint that is human design, and I started learning about energy healing, I became a biofield energy healer, and so many other aspects of energy, I just thought, wow, why did nobody ever tell me about energy before? And I've worked all over the world, big companies, small companies, and nobody really ever talks about energy, especially in the corporate circles I was in. So I started writing some of the things that I learned, and today I speak and share in classes and a podcast what I've learned. So this is a little bit about me, but let's get on to the meat of this, which is more about you. Today, we're going to talk about your superpower types, your superpowers by type, but we're going to start with a quick conversation about human design. So what is human design exactly? Well, it's called the science of differentiation. It's also called the science of awakening, and it's based on a number of ancient systems all rolled into one: Eastern, Western, Vedic astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, the Jewish Kabbalah, and and also quantum physics. So it's kind of like all these different self-assessment tools rolled into one. It's the most specific and most precise to you of any that I've ever found. And it came from a guy named Ra Uru, who he had a very incredible experience with what he calls the voice. You can look that up on YouTube if you want. It's a documentary. It's a little slow, but it does tell the fascinating story of how human design got to us, and it really suggests that we were coded at birth. So human design is based on a lot of very precise details, codes, numbers, all these different systems kind of rolled into one. So it's kind of like Myers-Briggs meets astrology, and it really is pretty fascinating when you get into it. This is what I think of as a human design Bible. It was the first book that Ra Uru who wrote, and it's very technical in nature. It's kind of like a textbook. There are other books that I would recommend more if you're just getting into human design, but I put it here just because it's sort of the beginning of human design. Whew, that's a lot. Well, what human design essentially tells us is that there is no one size fits all. And that's because we're all specifically different and unique. We're perfect the way we are. And in fact, the way we are designed to interface with the world is determined by an electromagnetic field which emanates from our heart. And this information came from the Institute of Heart Math. And so there's more there, but really, I just like the image because it shows the visual of what we've all experienced in real life, which is when you walk into a room, it's like if somebody's really angry and they walk into the room, you can feel it even though they haven't said anything. Or if they're really cheerful and happy, you can kind of feel it even if you don't see them. And that's because our auras communicate with the other person or the other people before we do, before it precedes us, and it kind of goes beyond words. It's a field that's electromagnetic field emanating from our heart. It's called a toroidal field, and it goes out about 6 feet. Interesting that we've been told to space apart six feet, so that we don't, maybe perhaps so that we don't interact with each other. I don't know, but I think this is just a beautiful way to understand the energetics of what's happening when you walk into a room. So today we're going to look at your particular aura or electromagnetic field based on your type. And yes, it is different, and yes, it is important important that it's different because it actually determines how you interface with the world. So in human design, there are 5 types, technically speaking, but in terms of aura, there's really just 4. So generators and manifesting generators have the same type of aura. It's called an open and enveloping aura, and it's like a magnetic field that emanates from the heart that draws things to you. So it's very important what you think, what you speak, and what you intend, because that sends out what I call, let me say it this way. I think of it as like you're sending out everything is energy. So you're sending out these waves of energy, which are your thoughts, words, and intentions. And it kind of pings around the universe because there is no time and space in the quantum field. So it's like bing, 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 bing. It pings off of the things that are at the same frequency. And so this is why they say you can't, you don't want to, it's not going to be helpful for you to want something. You need to be a frequency match to it before you can attract it into your life. So that makes a lot of sense when you understand that your aura is like a giant magnetic field bringing things to you. And all the types have a slightly different aura, and it's for a different purpose. So we all have one, but it's just a different way that we bring things into our field. And so the generator type, open, enveloping, kind of warm and fuzzy, makes everybody kind of brings people to you. The projector, I'm using different language here just to let you know, some quantum language, a combination of what my teacher, Karen Curry Parker, calls the quantum human design language, and then some language that I've gleaned from what's called, I think it's B5 Institute, but it's more corporate. And I just like the other ways of looking at the names of the types because it makes it a little bit simpler to understand, especially when you're just getting started. And all this terminology can be really complicated and sound complicated. It's actually really simple. So, generator types. Generators and manifesting generators are builders. We have an open and enveloping aura, which brings things to us, kind of like that. And projectors are also called calibrators, and they have what we call a focused and absorbing aura. The purpose of this is for the projector types to really see into the other person, and this is one of their superpowers. They can kind of see into your heart and see who you really are, past the facades, past the noise, and that enables them to be able to guide your energy. So they're here primarily to guide the energy of the generators, which make up the majority, about 70% of the population. Projectors about 20%. And then the manifestors, they're also called innovators. These are a smaller percentage, about 8% of the population, and their aura is what we called, well, in traditional human design, it's called closed and repelling. That sounds very negative, but really a better way that I think of it is they have a very strong energetic field, which keeps space between them and the other person. And that's because their role is to initiate and say, hey, you, I want to be friends with you. Hey, you, I want to talk to you. Hey, you, do this. And so it gives them space to create. They're here to start something new and to create something new, and they need a lot of space for that creative process. So their aura actually protects them energetically until they initiate and bring a person or project or something into their field. But if they don't want to be around you, you can kind of feel like some space, like, whoa, what is that? And that's just because they have this energetic field that keeps them sort of protected until they bring it in. The reflector types are a small percentage, and they're just 1% of the population. We also call them evaluators. Their field is different. It's what we call sampling. Notice they've got all open. These are an example of the 9 centers that we talk about in human design. Each of these have a lesson for us to learn, and we'll cover that in another class. But what I want you to see here is that the reflectors have a different configuration. Notice they don't have any color in their centers. And that's what makes them reflectors. And that's because they're so open. We call it openness, the white in the chart. So much openness, they can kind of pick up. They're very sensitive. They can pick up kind of what you're thinking, what you're feeling. I mean, it's crazy. They can almost read your mind if they're tuned into their superpowers. My sister is a reflector, so I have personal experience with all of these types, and everyone is beautiful and amazing and perfect for what that type is here for. So let's talk more about what that really means. We're going to talk about in terms of career type, like I said. Well, think of it like this. How do you best express yourself in the world? Because remember, your aura determines how exactly you're going to interface with others through this energetic field, and that is related to your type. Your type is related to a lot of characteristics, which we're going to get into in a minute. And in an ideal world, you can apply these to your career or work, whether paid or unpaid. Like, this doesn't necessarily have to be a paid job, but this is just to say these are really your superpowers. You're different than others. You're based on your type. So how do you best express yourself in the world? Let's see. So what is your type? If you're a generator, a manifesting generator, we also call you a builder or a time bender. About 70% of the population fits into this category. Like I mentioned earlier, projectors, we can also call them guides or orchestrators, or manifestors, also called initiators, 9%, and then reflectors, calibrators, 1%. So that kind of gives you a sense for where your type falls in the big scheme of things. And it's important to understand that each type has a very important role in the building of what I understand is our new paradigm, which is like a new energetic platform that we are all we have the potential to step onto now. We all know that it's been what a lot of people think of as crazy lately, and the crazy might get more. So it's important from my perspective that I stay in joy and stay in a high frequency, and that makes life much more fun and easy. And then, of course, combining that with staying in alignment with your particular energetic blueprint, which we'll talk about today, is going to make everything much, much more fun and easy than it otherwise would be. Otherwise, there's a lot of resistance. So let's jump into it. Generator types make up the largest single percentage of the population. We also call them builders or alchemists. So don't be fooled. This is hidden in plain sight, the fact that generators are called builders. Slow and steady, potentially, the builders have the energy to create and build. I meant to mention here, what makes generators generators is they have their sacral energy center, this red one down here, defined. And what that means is they have access to what human design calls the most important or the most powerful energy in the universe. And that is because when generators are doing work they love or they find satisfying, they will have unlimited energy. It's kind of like the fountain of life, or the fountain of youth. It's like, wow, you can have unlimited energy, fountain of energy, if you're doing work that you really find satisfying. So that is a superpower of the generators because of that energy and that power that they have through using their sacral, which is a motor. They are able to build, to create, to do. These are the doers in the world, generators, along with the manifesting generators. We also call them in quantum language alchemists. And the reason for that is because generators, through their activity, through their doing, their building, can change something into something else. They take that energy and create something new from it. And that's the creation aspect that is referenced by generators or builders. And remember, that's always tied to this sacral energy center. Each of these centers have a name, and we're not going to get into the details of all that today, but this one is important in understanding the types because the generators make up such a large percentage, and so many of the characteristics, actually all the characteristics for generators, are based on this energy center and also the aura that we talked about earlier. So what's special about generators is that they can follow a linear progression, A to B, B to C, C to D, E to, they can paint by numbers. If you're a generator type, now you might say to me, but I'm not good at following directions. But here's what I'm saying to you. As a generator type, you have the capacity and the ability to really follow a process and do it really well. When we say designed for mastery here, that's because as a generator type, you're meant to do the same thing over and over and over until you get really good at it. And you will do it. You will get really good at it when you practice a lot. And so that's why this generators have a potential for what we call perfection, because they've done the same thing over and over and over. So if you've been done the same kind of work for a long time, you'll find that you're probably mastering it after a while. And that's beautiful. And that is one of your superpowers as a generator type, is to be able to follow directions. And you might take that for granted, but trust me, as a manifesting generator, I suck at following directions. And it's been kind of the bane of my existence my whole life. I really have a hard time following directions. And you'd be surprised at how traumatic that can be and what the consequences of that can be. So don't laugh when I say that following directions is a superpower, because it enables you to build and to follow the process and really do things thoroughly, which is beautiful. And so being thorough, being slow and steady, and building, creating, alchemizing is a superpower of this type. So you're designed for mastery. You can be called like a marathon runner in the game of life because you just keep going and going and going. Why is that? Because remember, you've got this sacral energy center defined, and that gives you unlimited access to energy when you're doing the work you find satisfying. By the way, the sacral energy center right here is the only sustainable energy source. It just keeps going. In another class, we may talk about the other motors. These four centers are also motors, but this is the only one that has sustainable energy. And so that is why this can be a real superpower, and you can get a lot of stuff done, and you can just keep going. And as it relates to sleep, know that you need to use up all your energy in the day and be physically active, especially for manifesting generators. It applies to both, for you to be able to get it all out, and then you'll be able to sleep really, really well. And if you don't sleep well and you're a generator type, you probably are not getting enough physical activity in your day. So generator types may need support with big picture planning. Often they can't see the forest for the trees because they're so focused in sometimes on the details, on just getting this thing right, and they're just doers, doing stuff that they have a hard time sometimes stepping back and seeing the big picture. And this is where the projectors come in, because they're really good at that, and they can guide the energy of the generators. So we'll get to that in a minute. But generator types do really well in group settings, and it's a good idea, if you're a generator, to outsource what's not in your genius zone. Why? Because you have energy unlimited for the things that you find satisfying, and the things that you don't find satisfying, they're just going to drain your energy. So you definitely want to be aware of that. Okay, so it's also important to be patient and not compare yourself with others, because we're all different, and it doesn't benefit you or anyone else to play the comparison game. So one more thing, just a reminder, the open and enveloping aura that generator types have attracts what you want to you. So it's very important to be conscious of your thoughts, words, and actions, because you're sending out frequency waves that are going to bring you back things that are in alignment with what you set your intention for. So beware. And if you're concentrated all the time on how how much pain and misery is in your life, well, guess what you're going to bring back to you? Yep, more of the same. So let's talk about manifesting generators. This is my type. We're also called express builders, or in quantum language, time benders. And remember that as you look at these types, even if we pass yours, I want you to keep in mind that if you have someone in your life that you're really close to, maybe a friend or family member, this is an amazing way to get to know why somebody is the way they are. And when I work with couples, it's amazing. I want to say I don't want to say I've saved a marriage, but one of my recent clients was working with was on the brink of divorce. And when she realized how she was a generator and her husband was a projector, they were just on the brink. And when she understood how different they were, and how they have different gifts and different skills, and through their energy blueprint, they're actually very compatible. And so even though they'd been married for a number of years, she was not satisfied, and he was frustrated. And once they learned about their human design, everything changed, because they were able then to let go of their expectations and start focusing on the dynamic that they had, understanding the strengths that each one brings and how they can really balance the relationship. So as we talk about manifesting generators, one of the reasons that they're called time benders is that's a reference to one of their superpowers. Manifesting generators like me, we like to find shortcuts. We're good at finding efficiencies. Now, what that often means is that we skip steps so we can get there faster, but then we have to go back and fix it later, or revisit it later, because we skip stuff. So that's why it can feel like manifesting generators can get a whole lot more done, because they're the only type that are designed to multitask. Just to be clear, it doesn't mean we should always multitask. It doesn't mean that's always a good idea. I'm reminded of a time when I was a teenager, and I was driving, and I was cutting a banana into my cereal in a stick shift in a really windy road. And I know I sound like a nutcase, but my mom used to do that, and I thought that was normal, and I was fine, and I never had a wreck. I was very safe. But my friend in the back seat told me later that it really improved her prayer life because of my multitasking, and it didn't even occur to me that that was not smart to do. I was a teenager. So we've talked about how manifesting generators find shortcuts, and they have this ability to skip steps. They can be thought of as the Jack and Jill of all trades, because they're always just doing all kinds of things all at once. And so it seems like they know a lot about a little bit about everything. We talked about the multitasking, and I think I have a typo here, but they work best in sprints and then rest. Even though we have the sustainable energy of the generator types with the sacral motor, We can be really inspired and just plow away and get a ton of stuff done, and then just kind of feel like, okay, time to do something else. Maybe got bored or something. So notice if you have a manifesting generator in your life, that might be what you find, and it's pretty normal for that type. Just like the generators, the manifesting generators may need support with the big picture planning. And most importantly, because they get so focused on the details and they want to get their hands dirty in the work. And so they kind of get focused on it and can sometimes miss the big picture. They also need to learn how to pause and then respond. So we're not going to get into strategy so much in this class, but both the generator types are meant to wait for something to respond to. And manifesting generators tend to go like 1,000 miles an hour all the time. And I mean, even me, I'm trying to remind myself to slow my voice down. I tend to want to talk fast. And it has to do, manifesting generators have a motorized throat. So it's one of the reasons why they can talk a lot and sometimes talk maybe too fast. So I'm going to just lead by example, take a deep breath, learn how to pause, and make sure I'm responding. I'll check the chat. I don't see any new questions. So manifesting generators can be seen as flaky. Why? Because they can turn on a dime. So if I tell you, let's meet up for dinner at 6, and then I'm on my way out and I call you and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to make it at 6. I'm going to be there at 6:30 because I really need to stop and do some errands on the way, or 7. You might think I'm really flaky, but and I'm not saying this is a good thing to do, but because manifesting generators have an ability to skip steps and try to cram more things in, they tend to do this in ways that nobody else does, and they can be perceived as flaky. So if you are a manifesting generator, be conscious of that uh, so that you take into account other people's needs as well. And always remember to ask yourself yes or no questions all the time. Why all the time? Because you might feel that something is correct for you, and then as you get closer to it, it might change. So always asking yourself yes or no questions is important for both the generator types. Super important. In fact, that's the way to know what's correct for you. You're going to get it. Maybe someone else can even help you. We can go into more detail in this in another class, but to make decisions, the generator types, it's best for somebody to ask them a yes or no question, and then you listen to your body. So it's going to be an uh-huh or an uh-uh. And that's super important to know what your body says is correct for you. It's important that we get out of the thinking mind and into the body when we want to learn what is actually correct for us as generator types. And then one last reminder about the open and enveloping aura that attracts. So again, being careful and conscious and living intentionally about what you think, what you speak, and what you intend. Why? Because we send out those frequencies all the time with our words, especially manifesting generators with a motorized throat, and we can manifest things very quickly. So it's important that we're intentional about what we choose to manifest. Take a deep breath here. Projectors are the next group. We also call them guides or orchestrators. If you think about an orchestrator, the conductor in an orchestra who says, you do this now, and then you do that, and then a little bit of this and a little bit of this, keep that image in your mind of a orchestra conductor when you think about your projector friends or even about yourself. Because if you're a projector, you're in the minority. You make up about 20% of the population, and you've always felt that you don't fit in, and that's absolutely accurate because you don't have that sacral motor defined. So it means you've got inconsistent access to that energy, and so it doesn't mean that you don't have it. It just means it's not as consistent for you. And you have different superpowers. Instead of being able to just do, projectors have a special gift of being able to be. So if you have a projector in your family, or you have a projector partner, or you're a projector yourself, remember that you're not here so much to be a doer. Not to say that you're not going to do important things, that you don't have to do certain things to keep your life running, but your primary gift to the world is in your being. You are here to be, and in the new paradigm, it's going to be increasingly important learning how to be going forward. And all of us generator types are just so focused on do, it's hard for us to be, but being is an aspect of head heart coherence. It's really important that we learn to be, and projector types are the ones that can help us with that the most. Generator types and manifesting generator types are the ones that work best with yes or no questions. Yes. And they are the only ones that are meant to have the sacral as their inner guidance system. It's because they've got the access to that motor all the time. It's not to say that all the other types don't have access to that. It's just that it's inconsistent. So I appreciate that question, because I want to let you know something super important. When you're talking to a generator type, even in just casual conversation, let's say you have a generator kid or a generator partner, it's really important that you ask them yes or no questions. The communication flow is going to be so much better, even if you're not trying to help them make a decision. But asking yes or no questions is something they can respond to, which is what's in alignment for them. Now, if you're a projector, guide, orchestrator, those are all words that help us understand this particular type, or you have someone in your life that is, you want to ask them open-ended questions. This would be the same for manifestor types and reflectors. You ask them open-ended questions. So how was your day today? What do you think about this? I'm wondering about XYZ. Those are examples of questions that you would want to ask, the types of questions you'd want to ask someone with an open sacral. This is the sacral right here. So look at their chart, and if you see that it's white, that means it's open, and the open-ended questions are going to be the best ones for those types. But if they're a generator type and this one is colored in, the sacral energy center is colored in, then you want to focus on yes or no questions primarily. It's not to say that you can't have detailed conversations and ask other questions. It's just, as a guide, as a general rule, you're going to have much easier flowing communication when you ask those types of questions. And this can improve communication significantly between couples, between friends, between parents and kids, just knowing this one thing. So if you're not actively using this secret in your life, I encourage you to try it. Remember that human design is called an experiment, not because it's experimental, but as Ra Uru Hu, the founder, said, it's about the experiment. It's about you practicing this in your own life to see what works for you and if it's relevant for you. And so there's a lot of variation, but generally speaking, these are by your type, it's sort of like a configuration, and generally things are the same for most types. But there's so many other variables too. I mean, there's the gates and channels and conditioning and programming. I mean, so I always want to preface this by saying human design is an amazing tool that helps us to know who we are, and we are evolving fast, and we're going to keep changing. And so this is a great starting point for understanding who we are today and how we got to where we are and how we can best interface with the world. But it doesn't necessarily mean we're limited to this, because going forward, we are in a process of evolution. So everything is going to keep changing. And how much that changes for you and I, there's so many other factors, and that's another conversation. But I just want to recognize that this is not the be all and end all. And there's a lot of other factors to consider. But I do believe that when you look at your configuration, your energetic blueprint, and you understand these principles behind different types, it's going to make a huge difference in how you understand yourself and those around you. So getting back to projectors, they are really good at architecting and facilitating. Why? Because they can step back and see the big picture, and they're really good at knowing what each individual person is, who they are, and what they can do. They can kind of see inside you. It's almost unnerving when a projector does that. They can look inside you, and it feels like they're almost like grabbing your heart or something. I mean, I had that experience once. It was a little bit weird. And so that's why it's important for projectors to follow their strategy, which is to wait for the invitation. Very powerful beings, but when they kind of go in and look inside you, it's very unnerving. It's like, oh my gosh, someone can see through me. And that can be really a weird experience. So if you're a projector, you always want to wait for the invitation so that when you do that, it's received well. And the guidance that you're here to provide, mostly or primarily one-on-one in those kinds of settings, is going to be received. Because if you're a projector, you're not here for everyone. You're only here for people that give you an invitation and that feels that invitation is correct for you, depending on your strategy. So projector types are highly insightful, can be great influencers, and they're here to be recognized for their wisdom. And that wisdom is vast, but again, not for everybody, only for the people who recognize it and ask for it. And that is an example of the invitation. So projectors going forward in the new paradigm are meant to guide us into new ways of living, working, and being. And so that's why this says they're like a lighthouse and need to get comfortable in the spotlight, because increasingly going forward, we will be looking to projectors for the new ways of living, working, and being that are going to help us recalibrate in the new paradigm, and with so many new things that are going to be coming here for us and that are already here. But projectors intuitively, the ones that are tuned in and living in alignment with their design, they already sort of see, sense, feel, know, depending on their configuration, kind of what's coming. And so they are amazing guides for us all, but they're very different than generators. So understanding this, if you have a projector partner or friend or kid, it's important that you understand that their configuration is very different than the generators. So they are great at designing new things. They're great at team management. Again, remember the orchestrator perspective. They can see each individual person, they can see what they can do, and they can pull it all together in a way that few can. I used to be married to a projector who was a great project manager, and my brother is also a projector. So they also can be really great at project management. So if we're talking about career by design, projectors naturally have that ability. It's not to say they need to have a job title or necessarily have that as a job or a career per se, but they would be really good at it in most cases. So just to give you a sense, if you're a projector or somebody who is, that can be really rewarding for them. And yes, projectors can seem judgmental because they can see things that few others can see. But a projector that's living by design is innately going to let go of judgment and proceed from openness without judgment or expectation, because that is one of the new ways of living, working, and being that's going to help us move forward in the new paradigm with ease and flow and grace. So projectors can be perceived as judgmental, and maybe in some cases they really are. Nobody is immune to this, right? It's always personal choice. They have the capacity to potentially be very judgmental. A lot of times, projectors that I've worked with have this defined will center, we call it, and they have a strong sense of what they want, and that can be perceived as very judgmental. So that is true. It's worth a conversation, though. If you want to talk about it, offline, we certainly can. Every situation's different, but yeah, projectors can definitely seem judgmental. They also need to be aware of burnout if they're not living in alignment. See, most projectors are trying to be generators because most projectors don't know that they're different, and they don't know how they're different. They know that they're different, but society tells them that they should just do it, work hard, and that's what the generator types do. But and this world is made for generator types. I'll say the old paradigm was, but projectors are not necessarily here for that. They're not designed for a typical 9-to-5 job, and that's because they have inconsistent energy. They may have all three of the other motors. I have met some projectors that do. They can get a lot of stuff done. It's not that they can't. It's just that their energy is inconsistent because they don't have, by definition, consistent sacral energy. So it's inconsistent. And what it means is they're going to be drawn to generator types who do have that energy, and they're going to want to lock onto that when they're invited and guide the energy of the generator type. So that is really what they're here for, and that's why this says guide, because they have this one undefined. So that means they're going to be drawn to the opposite, which is the generator types. And when they get an invitation, either to be in relationship or for work or for living together or whatever, they're going to get that invitation. If it's correct for them, then they're going to intuitively want to guide that generator type, which can be challenging in the relationship if both parties don't understand what's going on, but they have a capacity to really make generator types more efficient and effective. They have some amazing wisdom to share, but again, only when they're invited. That's really important that everyone follow their strategy. That is the strategy of projectors, is wait for the invitation. They can be seen as too sensitive, and they can also be seen as lazy because they don't have this generator motor, consistent energy, and so they tend to be more needing to relax more often, especially if they have this one defined, this will center, which a lot of projectors I've worked with have. And that's another thing we could talk about, why so many projectors have that defined will center, and relatively most generators, it seems like, in my experience anyway, have this undefined. I think it's because the projector guides are here to kind of push new ways of living, working, and being. And that will center, that defined will center, is a motor that really helps them like push and get stuff. It can be forceful, but they're here to help us move into new ways of living, working, and being, which kind of requires a push from most people because, we don't like change as a general rule. So we've talked about how they need to be recognized, and they need to wait for the invitation. The currency of a projector is recognition. So if you want to get some bonus points with a projector, really recognize them for who they are, see them, recognize them, appreciate them, and they will probably just feel so good in heart to experience that, because that is just what they're probably hungry for, because so few people understand this and so few people really recognize them, and they feel like they're always waiting for the right invitation. And it might just be that their time has not come yet, or that they are not ready. And that's important too. Projectors really need to follow their yumminess, which means self-care. They must be focused on self-care to be in alignment, to be able to be ready for the next invitation. So remember, they have a focused and absorbing aura, makes them really great counselors, coaches, one-on-one, because they can see inside the other person. And that is just a beautiful characteristic, but again, can be unnerving if you haven't asked for it. Last but not, well, actually not last but not, okay, we also have manifestors. Manifestors make up about 8 or 9% of the population, also called initiators or innovators. That gives you an indication of the manifestor superpowers. They are here to start something new. They are here to innovate and make it better. So they're really good at sales. They can be good at sales. They can be good at developing new things because they're here for the new. They're here to create new, start new, get things rolling. They're not the operations person. They are the person that is going to direct the energy of the generator types for the most part. Notice that they have an open sacral here. So again, your opposites always attract energetically, and we could talk a lot about that. Maybe we can in the Q&A if you have questions. But the manifestor types have an open sacral. They're going to be drawn to generator types to help get things done. Right here it says need generator types to direct and or do the work. Another way to think of a manifestor is a director. So they're very, very good at telling people what to do. Manifestors have also a motorized throat, just like manifesting generators, who are a hybrid of manifestors and generators. And so the manifestors, with their motorized throat, are very good at giving orders. I mean, it can even sound like barking orders. You do that, you do that. Hey, go do this. Can you get me that? And so they have a motorized throat. They're here to inform. That is their strategy. And so that's what they do. They're here to do that so that they can get things started, so that they can manifest fast. So they're really good at visualization. They're very charismatic. Usually they have a powerful, energizing aura because they really get things started. So it's a lot of energy here. Fire starter, trailblazer, pioneer, again, new things. They're here for the new, to create, to start, and brainstorm, innovate, here to make things happen. I think you get the idea. They're also not made for the typical 9-to-5 schedules. Now, again, it's not to say they can't get a lot done. Remember that the open centers, like the open sacral here, can be way stronger even than a defined sacral and have a lot more energy. but it's usually in shorter bursts, and so it's not sustainable. They need to rest, they need a nap, whatever it is. I have a stepdad who's a manifestor, and he takes naps all the time. My mom was so frustrated with him for years until I got into human design and I explained, Mom, he needs naps. He's not being lazy, and he's not nothing wrong with him. He just, he doesn't have the sacral energy defined, so he doesn't have consistent access like you do to that motor, and so he needs breaks. He needs naps. It's okay for him. And manifestor types need space to create. Remember, we talked about the aura of a manifestor and why it sort of feels like it can feel, what's the word? It can kind of feel like it's pushing you away, but it's not personal. It's that they need space to create. So if you're a manifestor, know that it's okay for you to take space and time to be able to create, to be able to get into the flow. It's really important for manifestor types to just follow their joy, follow their energy, because they are here to do certain things, and they're very, if they're in alignment with their design, then they're tuned in to divine timing, and they can do the work of the new paradigm, which is to start new things and new ways of living, working, and being. The projectors are here to guide us into new ways of living, working, and being. Both of these types, and actually also the reflectors, can guide the energy of the generators. I'm pointing to the sacral here because that is what they do that's what the opposites do. And it's an important role that they have. So they're here to kind of direct the energy of the generators. And so their superpower is to get things started, is to have a lot of energy and just get it going and innovate. Reflectors, lastly, are 1% of the population. We could call them mirrors or calibrators. They're like a canary in the coal mine, very sensitive, very wise. When you look at the chart of a reflector, it's always going to be open, meaning all these 9 centers are going to be white. And what that means is that they can read people's energy. They can just pick things up from the ethers. Like when I called my sister, for instance, she can almost tell what I'm going to say before I even open my mouth. It's amazing the power that these reflectors have. And so part of their superpowers is that they can pick up so much information. They can read the energy of the room, of the people, and it makes it really easy for them to create meaningful connections, assimilate into different environments and communities, because they can see and feel and sense what is needed. They're here to be a mirror for other people to either absorb or reflect back the energy, because remember that all of these centers, when they're open, are amplifying the energy of the other, which is the opposite. So they're reflecting that energy back, which amplifies it, which means it makes it greater than it is otherwise. So reflectors have a really important role, especially in community. That's really what they're here for. They're here to be like the shaman in a tribe. If you think of it metaphorically, their role is to really assess the health of the team, and their aura is what we call sampling and amplifying. They're just able to pick up a lot of stuff and tell who's not quite well, who's not quite sick, what this person needs. They have a lot of openness, which gives them a lot of wisdom. So it's very important that they have supportive, high vibe people around them, because they're picking up all that energy of what's around them, and therefore it can be very exhausting for them if they don't know how to clear their energy field, and if they're not resting, and also resting alone. So all the types that have an open sacral, it's really best for them to sleep alone, because that allows the body time to let go of all the energy that it's absorbed from being around all these other people. So if you have a partner that is not a generator type and they always want alone time, it's probably just because they feel like they need it. It's not personal. So that's what's so beautiful about human design. Once you start to understand the configuration and the hardwiring of the different types, you can understand so much more about who someone is and what they need, and that it's not personal. We're going to have a discussion on Thursday about new paradigm relationships, and I think that's going to be really fascinating. So I do encourage you to join me for that. That's the only class that I'm doing this week that's not 100% about human design, but it touches on a lot of the things that I believe are important for moving forward in the new paradigm, new ways of living, working, and being. And each of the types brings something special to bear to help us create that new world that we all want to live in. So that's a little bit more about the reflectors, also called mirrors or calibrators. So, which one are you? And are you clear now on what your superpower is? Are you the builder? If you are, you probably resonate with the Energizer Bunny. When you love what you do, you always have a lot of energy. So there's obviously a lot more superpowers than just this, but one of the big ones for the generator types is the builder. They can just go, 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 and they just never seem to stop. And they have access to that sacral energy. So that is a superpower. Trust me, the rest of the types don't have that, and they're jealous sometimes, or they can be jealous of that. So we have a question. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Let's just finish the superpowers here. We're almost done. So if you're the builder, remember that being like the Energizer Bunny and doing what you find satisfying is going to give you endless energy, and that is a superpower. If you're an express builder, that means you're a manifesting generator. You're going to be good at finding shortcuts, always finding efficient and effective ways to do things. You know, as a change manager, that's what I always did for large scale technology implementations for almost 20 years. And it was using technology to make things more efficient and effective. And then I would work with the people to help them in their process to absorb these new tools to help them be more energy efficient and effective. So shortcuts. So if you're an express builder, you're a manifesting generator, finding shortcuts is one of your many superpowers. And time bending, I'll say, time bending too. If you're the advisor or the projector, you are really good at being able to see into the other and see how people can work together, how that you can coordinate them and, you know, do the orchestrating thing in a team situation or in a one-on-one situation, how to help an individual be more efficient and effective, like just in their own beingness. That's a very beautiful skill set that the projector types have. Now, if you're an innovator, you're a manifester, and you can easily start things. You're the only type that can just go out and initiate, just go out and make it happen. I grew up with a father who was a manifesting generator, and he was a door-to-door salesman. And he always would say, if it is to be, it's up to me, you know, and I grew up going door to door, knocking door to door. And I thought that was normal because that's what we did in my family. But my dad was a manifesting generator. And so that manifester part of his nature was making him want to just go out and make it happen. So innovators are here to start things, to move them along. That's a superpower of them. Innovators also called manifestors. If you're a reflector, you're in the minority. And if you are, one of your superpowers is to be a mirror and to reflect back to them the health of the individual, the environment, or the system. Like a canary in a coal mine, you're very sensitive and you're able to see and feel and perceive things that most people aren't. So it makes you great as an evaluator. You can use that in work. You can use that in your personal life. Very valuable skill set. So those are a summary of the superpowers of each of the types. Whoops. So quick review, we talked about what is human design, where did it come from? We talked about the 5 types and then specifically the key superpowers of each type. And we're going to get to Q&A in just a moment. If you would like personalized help, I do offer a number of services. AskGrace.info is the website. You can get a mini human design reading if you're just getting started and you're not sure if you're ready to invest in a deeper dive. You can go for a deep dive where we look at all the key aspects of your chart specific to you, what makes you you. This is where we can answer specific, well, any of the sessions, you know, we can answer specific questions that you have, but this one is really looking at the whole picture of your profile and then all the nuances. I mean, as much as you can do in 2 hours, but it's a pretty comprehensive deep dive. And then if you're looking to get into a relationship, that's a lot of time, money, and energy to invest. So it would benefit you to do a partnership assessment. This is where we look at your chart, the chart of the other, and the third energy field that's created between the two of you and what you can expect, the patterns and how to maximize that relationship. And then activate your life purpose is for you if you want to look at your chart and you want to know where to focus your energy for the best career, for a job change, for a a shift in your life, and you want to live on purpose. We focus on, it's both this is a 2-hour session, and so we look at your a summary kind of your human design chart, like a lot of detail around that. And then we look at the 4 codes, which are codes in your chart, which make up 70% of who you are and what you're here for. So these are also called themes, but you'll probably be like, oh my gosh, that explains so much when you see it. And so that can help you live really in alignment and on purpose if you're thinking about a career change or a life change of some sort. And then if you're not sure which one is best for you, the quick call is the one I would suggest. It's a 15-minute call, and there's a $1 charge on it. It's just because I've had so many no-shows in the past when I made it completely free. So if you're willing to just pay $1, we can have a great conversation, and I can direct you either to resources or help you decide on a reading that would be good for you or something else. I'm happy to chat with you. So those are all at askgrace.info. I would love to help you. And then let's just go ahead and talk about your questions and answers. We've just got a couple more minutes. So I think we had a question here from Claudia. She says, as far as questions and communication, how do the manifestors, projectors, and reflectors experience a true yes or no in their bodies? That's a great question, Claudia. And it depends on what their inner authority is. So for generator types are the only ones that are going to have either the sacral authority, which is the yes or no, or the emotional authority, which takes time. It's more of an emotional wave. But all generator types do have access to that aspect. But the manifestors, projectors, and reflectors, there's a lot of variety in the way that what their inner guidance system is. There's a whole class that I do on that. So if you're interested in that, I can't remember if I'm doing that this week or not, but just send me a DM, and we'll talk about it if you want to go into more detail. But it depends. There's quite a few other authorities that it could be. A lot of manifestors, for instance, have well, anyway, there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of variety actually for all 3 of these types. So it will depend on their inner authority. That's the answer to your question, Claudia. Thank you for asking. And so Beatrice says, curious about the color choices for the types. I'm a generator, which is sacral, but it's colored red like the root chakra. Yeah, for the purposes of that, those colors don't really mean much. Red, the sacral is often referred to as red, and then the root chakra, depending on the system, could be, it could be, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to say there is a correlation between the 7-centered being in the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, the 7 chakras that we often see in yoga class, for instance. But human design recognizes a more advanced and evolved human, which has 9 centers. And so what that really means is that the 2 on either side split a few years back. And so we're getting into more nuanced ways of living, working, and being. And so that's kind of more about the chakras. Mary asks, is everyone on this call a generator? I don't think that's true. Let's see, but who's here? Let's see. Well, if you are not a generator, please put it in the chat. I don't think everyone is, but yeah, thank you, Beatrice. I'm so glad you guys are here. If there's no other questions, then I guess we'll finish. Okay, Katarina is a manifesting generator. Well, maybe it is all generators on the call. I'm not sure. I'm looking at the list, trying to remember what people said. It was in the chat, but maybe it is. Yeah, maybe everyone here is generator. Okay, well, if you have any other questions, I'm going to hang out for another minute. You're welcome to take yourself off mute, and then we'll just go ahead and wrap up. If you know somebody that wants the recording, please send me, DM me with an email address. I'm actually traveling today, so I probably won't be able to send it out until tomorrow by email. One last question: how are we able to tell if we're other types? I feel like 1 or 2 of those was relevant to me. Okay, Beatrice, that's a great question. you'll know for sure what your type is based on your date of birth, time of birth, and city of birth. So you'll put it into one of the chart generators like freehumandesignchart.com, and that will tell you what your type is. But just because a lot of the characteristics of the other types resonate with you, it's there's a lot of variety. But the point of this class was for you to see what the types are and kind of what they're about and how they interface with the world from an aura perspective, and also the key characteristics. But there's so much variation on what people are based on other characteristics, their conditioning and programming, their channels and gates, um, their centers, what other centers are defined, the relationships they're in and how they're used to seeing themselves, their belief systems. There's a lot of factors. So if you're interested in knowing more that's specific to you, please do schedule time at www.askgrace.info. So I am in a cafe, and I am in the middle of driving back to Texas right now, so I'm not going to hang out for too long. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure to be with you. And and I do have a quick let me send you a link to a quick survey. I would love to have your feedback. Put the link in the chat. Thanks, Niall. I see your email address, and I will send you a link. So here's the link if you want to get the recordings and/or you want to give feedback. It's only going to take you a couple minutes, but you can get free other free trainings that I have if you give me your email address, and I will also let you know when other stuff is coming up. So thanks again for your time. Thanks, Claudia. Thanks everyone who was here. I appreciate you, and I look forward to connecting again soon. And if you do want to have a personal conversation, you're welcome, Mary. Please do schedule time at www.askgrace.info. Thanks, Niall. Okay, talk to you later. Hopefully tomorrow at the same time, where we're going to talk about profiles. See you then.